Hello, everybody, and welcome to Geopolitical Trends, where truth matters. It is indeed a somber day. I didn't expect to come online here on Sunday. Usually Sunday, that's where I just chill out. But given what happened last night, which I'm sure you're aware of, that the U.S. launched bombed the three nuclear facilities in Iran. So I didn't want to do anything last night. I was thinking about doing live, but I had to figure out and confirm certain types of informations. Then that's where we are today. So anyway, this is what I'm going to be talking to you today, is providing you my insights and updates about what happened and what lies ahead. Not that I claim I have the answers. All I have is my perception and my perspective regarding what lies ahead on part of Iran, and also the big picture in the Middle East or West Asia, that is. So just to give you guys an idea, I will be addressing this topic from from a different perspective, rather, for the rest of the coming week. There's a lot of angles that I'm gonna need to share with you. So just be on the lookout, and I'll be sharing all this with you. So welcome to all our community here. I know some of you has been waiting here. I want to say thank you to Noel. Much appreciate you for your super sticker. Greatly appreciate your continued support. So let's get into this one here. And by the way, I'll answer some questions towards the end if there are any super sticker questions there. So, as you know, the idiot Trump. Yes, I call him an idiot. So because this is putting our country at risk, putting the whole world for that matter. So for him to just go ahead and give the order, but it gives you an idea right there that it wasn't Trump. Trump was ordered to do so. So don't let yourself be fooled that it was the American president decision. No, it's not. So, and this is why when Donald Trump announced early morning on Sunday that the U.S. forces, of course, he lied, that has successfully carried out airstrikes. Well, wait a minute. What makes us think that it was successful to begin with? Yeah, you dropped a bomb, so what? Is this going to stop now the nuclear program for Iran? I don't think so. And I'm going to get into why Iran, we need now to change course to move forward with this. So, of course, the three locations that were attacked, they were Fordow, Natanz, and Isfahan. One question that comes to mind, which I'm sure to those who know a little bit about the Iran's nuclear civilian program, there is another nuclear power plant, and that's Bushehr, which is a major one. So makes you wonder why the U.S. didn't attack the Bushehr nuclear power plants as well. There are those who say, well, no, because Fordow, that's where the main enrichment uranium is. Not necessarily. And the reason for that is because Iran's nuclear program is dispersed in the different locations, and each location has a specific task or a mission. That is, one will be for enrichments, one will be for heavy reactors for heavy water, and each one of them has its own task. And so the reason why Bushehr was not attacked, it's because that's where the Russian scientists are. There are about 500 to 600 scientists there. And given that Russia issued a warning to the U.S., to Mr. Trump, you can just see at least why that particular site was not targeted. So I had a chance to read an introductory to the book of Chris Hodges. I know you're familiar with him, I'm assuming. And I couldn't agree more with what he stated. Let me share this with you. And I quote, "War opens a Pandora box of evils that once unleashed are beyond one's control. The warmongers who ordered the strikes by U.S. bombers on Iranian nuclear sites have no of a plan of what comes next in Iran than they had in Afghanistan, in Iraq, Libya, or Syria. European allies whom Israel and Trump have alienated with their these air assaults are in no mood to cooperate with Washington." End of quote. I couldn't agree more with Chris. And Chris has been around long enough and covered war zones and so forth. So basically, the gist of it, guys, it's what lies ahead now. And like I said yesterday in the short video that I released for you guys, it's the next 72 hours will be crucial. So where Iran is going to go from here, nobody knows. Nobody knows. So what we need to understand is that when Trump is saying that sort of there is no other army, this is his word, and I quote here, there is no other army in the world other than the US Army that can do this, end of quote, meaning dropping the bombs, which is pathetic to say this, you know. I mean, what equivalency do we have to compete with the Russians or the Chinese, you know, or even North Korean themselves, you know? Then why aren't we taking on those countries? So, and now with Iran, like I said earlier, guys, you know, once there is a full, because what the US just did is nothing, literally, despite dropping bombs and on, this is nothing, just for show. Because the statements that's coming out of both Washington and Tel Aviv, it's stating that, oh, the nuclear program of Iran is done for. That's a lie, you know. There is none of that. As a matter of fact, the bombs that were dropped, okay, in Fordow, it was just dropped at the entrance. Excuse me. No more, no less. Why? Because where the systems are, they are about 80 to 90 meters to my knowledge. So those bunker busters is not going to go that deep. And what makes it even more troubling for the idiot Trump, the guy is incompetent. For him to say, and I quote, now he's calling on Iran to agree now to end this war, describing this moment as historic for the United States, Israel, and the world, end of quote. I don't think so. I don't think so. There is nothing historic about it. What is historic about it is the stupidity that now is dragging us into yet another conflict in the Middle East or West Asia. This is no different than what Bush did. You all remember with the Iraq, and you all remember the disaster outcome of it. Iran is no Iraq. And this is where I say about that stupidity of Mr. Trump not understanding the dynamics and the complexities of these issues. So, and what makes it even worse is the statement that Mr. Trump issued, which says, and I quote, Iran must stop immediately or they will be hit again, end of quote. That's the language of a bully. And I'm going to get into the violation of international law, the violation of the UN charters, the violations of the IAEA charters as well, let alone the sovereignty of an independent state. So, and the thing is, what Mr. Trump is, he just is clueless. So, and this is what leads me to ask the question, like one of our viewers in the community, it's Kenny L1. Thank you for that question, and spot on. When you wrote, is the attack really successful? That's a logical question to ask. Of course, nobody could tell. The media in Washington is going to, of course, exaggerate. The reports that I read this morning coming out of Tel Aviv, of course, is going to exaggerate the fact that, oh, the nuclear program for Iran is done for. It's not true. It is not true. Why? Because this bombing by the US, it didn't achieve the objectives, whatever those objectives are. This is where the difference is. So for what Mr. Trump is suggesting, it's nothing, because here is the thing. Media reports coming out from once again from both Washington and Tel Aviv stated that about 75% of the Natanz and Isfahan's facility and have been destroyed. I mean, you know, you all know how it is, and I am not here to be dealing with this. I am here to provide you the bigger picture, and this is what's important as you will be bombarded by more information regarding the attack and how successful it was, and we shut down the nuclear program for Iran and all that stuff. All that is hypes. Because what we just did now to Iran is that now you have the entire country united. As a matter of fact, I saw a banner this morning that it says, "We are all soldiers of Iran." Despite differences, despite whatever. They put that aside. And when you have a large country like Iran, about 85 to 90 million people, that sends the message right there. So, and this is why when you think about we using our might by this sort of disclosing what we used to conduct this bombing by using the B-2. I don't know if the B-52 was involved in this, but mainly the B-2. Those are two of those that left from Missouri and conducted the raid. So, yeah, there were several B-2 bombers were used to bomb the Iranian Fordow facility. So, and again, the 30,000-pound bunker buster ain't gonna achieve the objective. Yeah, you're gonna cause damage on the surface, but the program was still going on, because this is now exactly the defining moments for Iran. Iran now has to make some serious decisions. One of them that comes to mind right away is whether they're going to continue any form of negotiations with the US. Because at this point, you just have to cross those negotiations. Why not negotiating with the Americans? It's because, first of all, and again, Iran made a mistake. Allow itself to be deceived by the Americans. How can you trust the US government? Simple. And the second thing is whether now what just happened is going to sort of, what's the word I'm looking for? Expedite the Iran's nuclear program. It makes more sense to do so. Otherwise, we will be back to square one. Liking this video so far? Don't just be a watcher. Go ahead and hit the like, share, and subscribe button. And don't forget to tap the bell so you will not miss any of my videos or live streams. This way, you will be supporting a channel that stands for the truth and objective reporting. The choice is yours. Thanks for your support. Now, we have to think in terms once again as to, and again, I'm not getting into the tomahawks missiles that have been used and all that. It's done. It's done. We're going to have to think what the next day, moving forward. And moving forward is what matters now. It's because, in my perspective, things have changed now permanently. The region will not be the same ever. We've saw these changes after the invasion of the US of Iraq. That changed certain dynamics. But now what you're going to be seeing is that the decision that Iran is going to have to make moving forward. And this is why you are hearing the US now Trump saying, "Oh, I am not after taking out the supreme leader, Ali Khamenei. It's not the objective." Well, yeah, of course, because even within Iran itself, there are competing forces as to those who wants to say, you know what, let's build a bomb and be done with this. And there are those who said, no, let's open up to the West and establish a good relationship and so forth. Well, you saw what happened when a country like the other Arab states in the region happened to them when they are under the thumb of the US and Israel for that matter. And this is why Iran is in a very, very crossroads, very crucial crossroad of its history. It's going to have to make now some serious decisions moving forward. So it goes without saying. And this is why I'm going to share some stuff with you, a clip with you here. But before I do this, I'll explain one thing here. First of all, as I said, Trump was ordered to do this. There's only 2 or 3 members of Congress from the Republican Party who were briefed on the US attack on the Iran nuclear sites. As far from the Republican Party, from the Democrats, none of them. The Democrats on the intelligence committees were not informed about the strikes before they occurred. So, and this is where you start to think about the violation. The president has an absolute power. President for us is not a king. There are laws that ought to be respected. There is the Constitution that ought to be respected. But at the same time, we're done with that era. Members of Congress are violating the Constitution. The president is violating the Constitution. So that's what it tells you. Nothing left of our system. The way you and I, we know how it is. So let me share with you what happened in San Diego, California, right after Mr. Trump launched the attacks. So take a look, or take a listen, I'm sorry.
Good morning, San Diego. America's pissed off, people. This is Waterfront Park at the county building in San Diego, California. We are here to protest Donald Trump, his administration. Trump must go.
All right. Now, and we are only talking about what Trump did. Can you imagine when you start having body bags coming to the US, flying into Dover Air Force Base? And this is something that the warmongers, even Mr. Trump, does not realize or understand the impact of something like this. And once again, this is where the response of Iran is going to be very, very crucial as to which direction or trajectory this conflict is going to take. So, because if Iran does not respond to this, then it's over. So, and I don't think so. I think they will, in their own time, of their own choosing, the locations and so forth, and even the ordnance they're going to be using. So the first thing that is coming to mind, and I will do a video for you tomorrow about one of the first course of action is to shut down the Strait of Hormuz. And the other aspect you have to think about is the location of the U.S. troops in the region. I give credit to the CFR, the Council on Foreign Relations. This is their map here. So when you look at where the U.S. presence in this, when you see the map here, all of these locations are within reach of Iran's missile. So we're looking at about 40,000 troops in West Asia as of today. They are in a direct line of Iranians' missiles. Will Iran go ahead and start attacking U.S. facilities or bases? Maybe, maybe not. I don't know yet. I am keeping an eye open to see how it's going to be. But remember one thing, the U.S. has already moved out some of its assets from some of those locations, especially the ones in the Gulf. On the other hand, Iran was also proactive prior to the bombing, that they already evacuated, excuse me, they evacuated certain elements from the nuclear program from those facilities, from the Natanz, the Fordow, and Isfahan. So, because it makes more sense. They're not going to wait. So Iranians have already had a plan in place to do so. And by the way, don't forget the role of Britain into all this. The sneaky Britain, or Brits. Because here's the thing. The US, the US confirmed that it required the permission from London to launch the strikes from the Diego Garcia. Why? Because Diego Garcia is under British sovereignty. And makes you just wonder, Will Iran go as far as attacking the U.S. bombers in Diego Garcia? Because they do have the missiles that can reach that level. Possibly, possibly not. So suffice it to say, one thing is certain. I need you to understand. The moment Trump accepts the order from whomever, and we don't know, it's not a mystery, to go ahead and launch the attack, this in itself activated now Iran's support in the region. What am I referring to? I am referring to Hezbollah, and I am referring to the Houthis. And I will do a video for you about specifically the Houthis. The Houthis have announced yesterday that if Iran is attacked by the US, they're going to get involved. We all know the episode, how it ended when the United States wanted to take on the Houthis. We couldn't defeat them. The Israelis bombed Yemen became like rebels, and they couldn't defeat them. They were still standing, to the point that it was the Houthis that drove the USS aircraft carrier further north, the Harry Truman. So just think about it. If the Houthis gets involved into the conflict, which they will, think about Hezbollah getting involved, and especially with Hezbollah geographical location. This is why U.S. envoy already went to Beirut to pressure the Lebanese government to sort of convince Hezbollah not to get involved. And I don't think so. Those efforts will succeed. Then comes the big question. Okay. How come the U.S. is saying, well, we have to observe international law, and it is the one that is violating that law? So, because basically we violated the law, international law, that is. We violated United Nations protocol. We violated the IAEA. So, and even now, you have the foreign minister of Iran, Abbas Araghchi, calling for the UN Security Council meeting, and rightly so. We all know what the outcomes are going to be. The US and Britain, they're going to veto whatever. That's a foregone conclusion. I mean, I am not one to believe in the UN Security Council anymore. They need to get rid of that. Yeah, even China and Russia are saying, time to change this. You know, you can't give a power to 5 countries to dictate the terms. And this is exactly where these changes that's going to be happening now in the region is going to be a reflection of that changing of the global order. The world is tired of the United States dictating the term. It's because it's not dictating the term fairly. It's not advocating for things fairly. Yeah, I understand about strategic interest and all that, but you can't be abusing your power beyond belief. So, and that's exactly what we need to think about as to what will be Iran's next step. Will it go ahead and attack US bases in the region? Because they did warn the countries that host, like Qatar, like Bahrain, Saudi Arabia, Jordan, United Arab Emirates, even Egypt. My unit used to go to Egypt for rotation with Kuwait. So is it justified? I think so. And again, I am not advocating for war here. You all know me, guys. You know. But again, Iran has to defend itself. If your country is attacked, you have the right to self-defense. The other aspect of this is that will it be voices inside Iran that are saying, you know what? We're done with this negotiation with the West. Let's just move forward and speed up the nuclear program. Because here is the mistake that Iraq did, Saddam Hussein did. You all remember when the Israelis attacked the Ozark nuclear power plants in Iraq back in 1981. You know, of course, Saddam made one particular mistake. It was a strategic mistake when he sent his troops to Kuwait. That withdrew his resources, and end up being distracted. Otherwise, if he didn't do that, Iraq will be in a different position today because he would have been moving forward. And Iraq forces, you know, army and all that, had some presence in the region. And it is my belief that Iran will have now to do the same. It's going to have to speed up this. So, because unless there is a surprise element, and again, everything is possible. But one thing is certain, that for Iran to now sit down with the Americans and negotiate whatever, it will be like, as we say, the saying goes for us, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. Because it's going to become now on Iran. So, and again, the forces inside Iran, because now it goes beyond just regime change, even though the US is saying, well, I'm not interested in regime change. But even what makes you think, hypothetically, if we are to take out Ali Khamenei, who is, by the way, hiding, which is the right thing to do? Because one thing we've been focusing, as a matter of fact, Israel just took out another scientist and his wife. Because what Israel wants to do was decapitate the nuclear program by depriving it from having the scientists. So, but Iran has some options on the table. One of them is to speed up this nuclear program. Second thing is how far it is willing to target US installations in the region. And the third element is shutting down the Strait of Hormuz. Because if they shut down the Strait of Hormuz and the Houthis will shut down the Red Sea, which they already did, you all know what it means. You know. But there are two other main questions that loom large within this context. One of them is, will Russia intervene? And second one, what will be China's role and influence into this? Because it is in this moment, and I know there are some that trying to pull China into this by stating lies that China has sent sent weapons to Iran and all that. All that stuff is no, at least to my knowledge, couldn't confirm it. It's just to circulate the conversation regarding it's China that is, but China is in one particular position right now, and this one has to do with now America, the United States, entering this war, because it's a war. Whether the US wants to declare it or not, it's a fait accompli. The moment we dropped the bomb, we entered the war, so we have declared war on Iran. You know, of course, we didn't do it through the right channels by having Congress the one that has to declare war. But we don't respect the laws anymore. If we couldn't respect our own laws, what makes us think that we're going to respect international norms and laws and so forth? But suffice it to say that for the United States entrance into this conflict, this is going to be a defining moment for China influence on the global stage. Depends again what China is going to do. And we always think of China as the adults in the room. And I'm keeping my eyes open on statements from Beijing to see what they're going to be doing. So now, within this context, I recall when I wrote my Iran book, Volatile State, Running the Nuclear Age. Here is what I wrote, and I want to share with you this excerpt if you allow me. Washington must quit squabbling and focus on what lies ahead post-nuclear Iran. The US has also needs to heed how China and Russia intends to behave in the region, given this inevitable geopolitical shift. American policymakers assume that a direct conflict with China is unlikely. However, the possibility for such conflict exists if A, China's economy continues its healthy growth, B, the United States engages in another war in the Middle East that could interrupt China's access to energy sources there, and C, China embarks on a zero-reform policy in the Middle East in addition to the one in East Asia. With a high degree of certainty, the national security interests of both US and China will collide. The United States must reconsider its global strategy given these force-producing events. One cannot assume stable relations among major powers when their strategic interests are at stake. A volatile state running the nuclear age sets out to prove my point. And that is exactly the key questions that we ought to consider now moving forward. So, and this is now, as I said, regarding China, it's clear now. We're going to see the China's ability to influence West Asia, what is going to become of it. The same, this is why I talked about the alliance of Iran, Russia, China, and North Korea. Because if those four acts, that's going to change the equation, not to the liking of the United States. And that's a possibility, because we can't ignore that one. So, and this is one of the reasons why I wanted to address this with you, for you guys, to put this in perspective. What's important to understand right now is that the idea of what Iran's response is going to be. This is the key thing that we need to think about it. Will it escalate to the level of a global engagement? And we all know what it means. That means World War III. And that is very, very concerning prospect. I hope it never materializes. As to where China is going to be regarding all this, China is going to weigh the options, because China is not going to want to be entangled or dragged into. So suffice it to say, one other aspect that I forgot to address earlier, and this has to do with the intelligence provided to Mr. Trump. Now, if Mr. Trump discredited his own DNI, the Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, and listen to what his CIA director, John Ratcliffe, this is the guy here, who was an avid supporter of Trump. So we have to ask the logical question: where that intelligence that Ratcliffe provided Donald Trump came from? Did it come from U.S. intelligence community assessments, or did it come from outside the U.S.? And the answer is clear. So, because basically Ratcliffe was provided the info to provide to Donald Trump. And this is what's, again, I feel comfortable saying about the stupidity of Mr. Trump not understanding these dynamics. No. And that's why when you hear the statements, we successfully did this and did that, don't buy that argument. Don't buy that argument. It's a lie. Of course, they have to exaggerate the outcome. So, because if it was truly about the U.S. having intentions, why aren't they sending ground troops? Because do you know what the outcome is going to be? Once again, Iran is not Iraq. Iran is not Syria. Iran is not Libya. Iran is not Somalia. But on the other hand, if Iran does not take a firm stand and firm response, it will be over. This is a defining moment, not just for Iran, not just for the United States, it's for the global order. It's now or never. That's the way I see it. Anyway, guys, I just wanted to keep this brief for you, because I want to, as I said, I'm going to be next week tackling all this from different angles to provide you different perspectives, because you need to hear different aspects regarding this issue to form your own opinion and reach your own conclusion. So let me first say thank you so much to Kevin Baptiste. Appreciate you for your continued support, man. It means a lot to me, and I'm very, very grateful. You asked the question, Dr. O, what do you think Iran's next move will be? Now that will be my perspective here. First of all, they're going to have to send a message too, that they're going to have to target one of the U.S. facilities. If not that, then they're going to have to focus on targeting Israel, the same way the Houthis did. Remember when Israel and when the U.S. was attacking the Houthis, bombing whatever, what did the Houthis do? They end up firing more and more into Israel. Why? Because the Houthis knew that it's not the U.S. that wants that. It's Israel that wants that. The same thing Iran can do. What Iran can do, and it has the capabilities now, and proved that it can penetrate the air defenses of Israel. It just basically send the heavy. Iran didn't even launch the upgrade missiles it has. So this is what I expect, Kevin. I expect Iran to either send at least one attack against some U.S. installation somewhere, or fire directly at Israel. The other aspects of it is it's just going to cancel the negotiations, possibly leaving the NPT, the Non-Proliferation Treaty, altogether, because once they do that, then they're free to do whatever. And those are the two options that I see as of now. So, Joanna, thank you so much for your super sticker. I heard Iran will close the strait. Oil goes up. That is correct. And I intend to do a video for you guys. As a matter of fact, we will be addressing on the other channel on Geopolitics in Conflict at 4:30 this afternoon. We'll be doing a live stream there, and I'll address that. But tomorrow, I'll do one on this channel specifically for that, because I wrote about that possibility of shutting down the Strait of Hormuz when I wrote my Iran book. So I will address that one, Joanna. So the short answer, yes, that possibility is there. They are already moving their assets into that. And the US has already warned Iran not to shut down the Strait of Hormuz. Because here is the harsh truth. No matter what part of the world you're in, you're gonna feel rather the increase in the energy prices. It's because once the Houthis enter the fight, they're gonna put restrictions on the Red Sea. Well, guess what? When you look at the map, I don't know if I still, yeah, when you look at the map right here, when you look at the map, if you close both locations, the Strait of Hormuz and Bab el-Mandeb, you know, all those countries in the region, they are oil producing countries. Where are they going to send that through? You know, even Iran itself, it's not going to care. And that is where that difference is. That's the way I see it. So, Rafael, thank you so much for your continued support. Appreciate you, man. You wrote, Prof, what is Putin's game? Do you think Yuri Andropov will let a U.S. president acting like this, disturbing the peace all over the world? Yuri Andropov, by the way, guys, used to be a president of the Russians back then, and he was the head of the intelligence, the Russian intelligence. I remember reading about him, Yuri Andropov, and he will, yeah, Yuri Andropov would have behaved differently. Very interesting question, Rafael. What the Russian president is going to do, and that's why I asked that question. Will Russia intervene now? Because Russia also has a lot at stake. And this is the defining moment, whether you find out about true allies or not. But again, true allies have to also do some strategic calculations if it is worth their strategic interest to get involved. Because, like I said earlier, this is a defining moment, not only for Iran, not only for Russia, China, it's for the or the US for that matter, but for the rest of the world. You know, and I am convinced, should the US enter 100% into this conflict with troops on the ground, it's going to be the last nail on a coffin for us. And I'm convinced about this. So that's just the way I see it. So it depends again. I am going to be, as a matter of fact, Arakchi, the prime minister, is currently in Moscow. And I am going to be doing some reading tonight from the press releases to see. Of course, they're not going to disclose what they're going to do. That's common sense. But, you know, I know how to read those kind of reports, and I'll get an idea, and I'll share it with you guys in the next live stream. So once again, thank you, Rafael. Truly appreciate you for your super sticker. Army with Harmony, thank you for sharing your perspective. You are most welcome, and much appreciate you for your continued support. So, all right, guys, I am going to sign off here. I'm going to have to go do more reading, believe it or not. It's because there is there is another super sticker from Rafael. Once again, thank you, Rafael. Now I comprehend why Stalin made sure that Trotsky was gone, because he did not want a person like Putin to ever be in charge of Russia. They could never win the Cold War with Putin. I see your point, and I did write in my Russia book I did talk about Stalin and how he approached his tenure in power, and why the West was nervous about Stalin, because Stalin was not this Mr. Nice. He played hardball. Yeah, different personality than Vladimir Putin. I couldn't agree more with you, Rafael, on that. So, and yeah, this is how Russia during Stalin, yes, of what he did to some of his opponents and so forth. But that's again part of the dynamics when you are dealing with the changing geopolitical landscape, and the survival of the Soviet Union at that time was at stake. That's why he did what he did. So spot on, Rafael. Thank you very much. So, all right, guys, I take this opportunity, by the way, to say thank you to Ramzi Abdurrahman for buying me so many cups of coffees in support of the channel. So I'm very, very grateful to you, Ramzi, for that support. If you want to support the channel, here is the link. I will greatly appreciate your support for that. Let me put it for you guys in the chat box, since you can click on that on here we go. So I appreciate you guys. Once again, remember to join me at about 4:30 this afternoon, and tomorrow I will be talking to you about the Strait of Hormuz. And of course, I'll keep you updated this entire week. I'm going to devote this week to just what's going on with Iran, because it is changing. Already someone approached me to do an update regarding my Iran book, but if I do that, then I won't be able to be here, because that will be a full-time job in itself. So in any event, appreciate you being here, guys, and I look forward to seeing you next time. As always, remember, geopolitics impacts your daily life in more ways than one. Till next time, bye-bye.